In the late 19th century, a group of powerful Jewish leaders called the Elders of Zion got together in secret and wrote a manifesto that would serve as a guideline to every Jewish leader on how they were going to infiltrate and take control over the world, bringing upon the fall of Western civilization. This book is called The Protocols of the Elders of Zion, or how the rational world knows it, the most famous and damaging literature forgery that has been created, whose influence in the world ranges from casual anti-Semitism to terrible atrocities. Join me today as we learn how this book came to be, how it was spread, and why the contents of the book have been so persistent in this episode of Late Night Research. While the prosecution of the Jewish people is not new, the belief that there is a grand conspiracy to control society in all its aspects can be traced to the mid-19th century. The Russian Empire inherited the largest Jewish population in the world when they got territories from Poland and Lithuania, as well as the Ottoman Empire. Jewish people were allowed to live in Russia in a territory called the Pale of Settlement, and their affairs were handled by a Kahal, a Jewish semi-autonomous government. At this time, Europe was being swept away by liberalism, inspired by the French Revolution, in which ideals such as nationalism were tossed in favor of individual freedom, pursuit of happiness, equality, and liberty. This terrified all of Europe, since they were ruled by monarchs and they didn't want their power to go. So Russia became more nationalist, imposing religion and a Russian identity where Jewish people didn't really fit as per the Russians. Most Jewish people were pressured to convert, and this is where Jacob Rathman found the grace of the Russian Orthodox Church, since he was an ex-Jewish who wasn't liked in his local Kahal. So he wrote books saying that the Kahals existed in a way bigger force than what the Russians believed, and that they were international. There were secret Kahals everywhere. This would enrage many Russians and would start anti-Jewish riots in Russia and led an investigation of the secret Kahals. Meanwhile, the instigators of these riots published the Protocols of the Elders of Zion. The book itself was forged. Almost all the book in its entirety was copied from different books and just changed slightly. One of the most notable sources was the Dialogue in Hell between Machiavelli and Montesquieu by Maurice Joy. The book was a criticism of Napoleon III on 1864, but in the Protocols, of course, it was about the Jews. The book found incredible favor after the Russians lost a war against the Japanese, since they were one of the first powers to lose against an Asian opponent. The book served to scapegoat the Jewish people because, of course, they worked against the empire, and that's why they lost. Because they're not European, nor Russian, they're Jewish. The book spread in anti-Semitic circles and was quickly translated across Europe. In 1919, after World War I saw the loss and humiliation of Germany, the Protocols found incredible success as Germany saw all the ills they endured as orchestrated by the Jews. Meanwhile, in the US, starting in 1920, Henry Ford released many anti-Jewish stories in his newspaper that freely quoted from the Protocols and said how the Protocols fit on what's going today in the world. He would later release these stories in a book called The International Jew, the World's Foremost Problem. Many Nazi leaders saw Henry Ford as the ultimate representation of America. He would later receive the highest award from Nazi Germany. Speaking of Nazi Germany, the Protocols were required reading in schools, and both Joseph Goebbels and Hitler expressed admiration for the book. This is all despite Germany's biggest newspaper and England's The Times exposed the book as a forgery, a fake book, a copy, in 1921. Hitler said, "The newspapers say every Thursday how the book is fake. This just proves how real it is." And that's the thing about conspiracies. The content of the Protocols is nonsense because it is open-ended. The Jews will use everything from media to dictatorship to companies to being your friend to being your enemy to democracy, good, bad, so it can never be pointed as fake because there's nothing to prove since it's ambiguous by nature. After anti-Semitism fell out of favor in public, the book has been said to not be about Jewish people, but rather the Jewish were just a placeholder name for the Illuminati, Freemasons, you name it. Sadly, this book still has supporters across the world, from random internet people to the Ministry of Education of Saudi Arabia. In 1935, a Christian judge in Switzerland had these wishes: